In this episode, we talk about the core velocity belt.
And is the sleeper stretch good for the arm? Porcio, Kevin Schultz here at the @TopVelocity hashtag Pitch Tips show, where you go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat @TopVelocity hashtag Pitch Tips. Ask your question, our hashtag baseball tips. Ask your question, we answer it on the show. We're the most dangerous program out there, so please enter at your own risk. We've been known to be very, we're risk takers, right? We're extreme risk takers here, so be careful. But we have a crap ton of testimonials, so something's working. All right, so if you haven't been watching the show already, we've been answering some great questions. If you got a great question, please send it to us. We're trying to get caught up with everyone. We haven't got caught up your question, or if you think we missed your question, tweet it to me. Twitter's easy for me because it kind of adds everything up in order, and I can keep up it better that way, but we'll definitely get to you. Question for today. Julio Velez asks, thoughts on core velocity belt? Legally, I don't like talking about other products, so I'm gonna let Kevin do that. But I'll tell you, as far as using any type of assistance resistance training, I've been doing that since my career in early 2000. And if you look at my level 2 program, I use resistance assistance drills. We use the Skills recoil band. If you go to Skills, it's a recoil band. It's a belt with a little tubing to pull, and it allows you to add resistance or assistance and resistance, and you can actually get guys to throw harder that way, which we'll do in camp sometimes. Specifically with our med balls, a little bit easier on the arm than with the baseballs. You can actually, if you can get them to separate and stabilize the front foot, you pull their hips faster, they separate more, they throw harder. But Kevin does have experience. Kevin's obviously came through my programs, had success, but also being a coach himself has tried other programs and learned from them. So he'll give you his opinion on it. Go ahead.
All right, core velocity belt. It's kind of just like Brent said. It's kind of similar to the Skills band. It just took it and just kind of modified it and gave us a couple of good things. Okay, it gave us a couple of points that strap to our legs, kind of like similar to like a climbing belt. Okay, which helps just get that glute to pop through a little more than just the regular belt that attaches to your waist does, okay? And I like to use this in different variations. I like to use it as a resistance tool and an assistance tool to help us get our hips to come through, okay? And as the 3X drills, it really is useful to kind of put it behind you and make you pull your hip through so that it really shuts down your front leg in my mind, okay? If you were doing a front hip attachment point, and then make him resist it, guys will no longer throw their front leg open as much, and it's a useful tool to that. Assistance resistance it can give you some resistance to your hips, which can train you on how to use them correctly, okay? And how to really use your back leg to push that hip through, because if you have resistance, you can no longer just swing and just kind of use your momentum. You actually have to literally put a little push in it. Otherwise, the hips are not going to come open, and that's why I love the belt, is just because it really shows you that you have to create a little energy going forward, or a push that nobody wants to use the term. Back leg definitely activating to get that to push through. Okay, and then I use it another way on my front hip, is to kind of pull the front hip back and to get some of that front leg extension. Okay, and it's really, I've seen great success with that, using it on the front hip and snapping the front hip open, pulling it backwards. A lot of guys want to attach to the front hip and pull the guy down the mound more, but I don't think that helps us separate, because it just takes him more energy going forward, but he's not able to use it to open up his hips. So I'll put it on the front hip, and then I'll try to pull the guy backwards when he's striding here. Boom, it snaps him open a little bit. So you can use that in, like, we have our drills that we do a lot at Top Velocity. I've had a lot of success using it with our drills, and I think it's a great asset. And like I said, it was basically something that was already done out there, and they just took it and redefined it and made it a little more specific for the pitcher, and just added a couple of little things here and there just to make it a little more functional for what we're trying to do and what they're trying to do as well. So
yeah, I mean, I think they did a good job, because when I first started using a resistance band, I used a rock climber's brace or harness, and it like takes forever to get into. So I think that's where they did a good job. It's actually an easier thing to get into than something like that, and it has a little bit more, control or configuration than say just the recoil, skills recoil. But yeah, of course, obviously I like it, because if you look at my level 2, I have a similar belt using for resistance assistance. Good question. All right, next question. Danny Muniz asks, your thoughts on the sleeper stretch? Some use it, and others, at Eric Cressy and at B Rebellion, have reasons not to. Yeah, as far as sleeper stretch, I don't like stretching the rotator cuff. I like to gain more mobility in the internal external rotation with performance throwing, starting off with my external internal rotation throws using a weight, footballs. Because typically when we throw, we gain external rotation, we lose internal rotation, and we want to make sure that what we gain here, we lose equal amount there. And that typically is going to happen better if you're letting it adapt itself, not like forcing it to stretch where you want it to go, you know? So that's my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that the shoulder, it should never be one that we go for more mobility. Maybe the insertion muscles around it, say the chest, the pec, right here, the traps and everything, we can loosen those up and stretch those so that the shoulder gains more mobility. But as far as the shoulder socket itself, stretching that, I think you're walking some dangerous ground there. I think that it's more of a thing that you want to work the stability of the shoulder socket rather than trying to increase the mobility of that particular joint. I just like I said, I like to break up the muscle and like around it. I stretch my pec, all right, my tricep, my lat, but actually literally stretching the shoulder socket into more external or internal with the sleeper stretch. I'm just not a huge fan of that, and I don't think that should be done, especially for pitchers, because we're already doing a bunch of external, internal stuff like that. So, I mean, you just want to work on the stability of that joint.
Yeah, I mean, stretch prime movers, like Kevin's saying, you know, lats and pecs, big muscles can handle it, but like rotator cuff, I think you can easily fatigue them and strain them, and then you're going to have an issue with it stabilizing, protecting the joint. So I think you're walking a fine line. I think you're better off doing it through strengthening and just some light throwing and building it up that way.
Exactly. Exercises that take you into those natural ranges of motion is fine, but over exaggerating those, it can be a dangerous thing. And I mean, I've done it in my career where I've attached things to my arm to get more and more external, and I just don't think that's the way to go, is to gain more knowledge and just kind of just go.
Yeah, because like you'll see guys come in like with 110 degrees of external rotation, and they haven't really, it's off season, they haven't been throwing a lot, and then you start throwing, and then a month later you measure them and they're 130, 140. The arm's just going to naturally do that as you put the demands of throwing through those good movements. It's going to just happen naturally. So I would rather you do it that way. And if you're a guy who goes out and throws, you were 110, you go out and throw, and you're still 110 a month later, tells you don't get a lot of external rotation, internal rotation in your throw, and there's drills for that, like our external and internal rotation throw, that would actually do that. So that's an indication that biomechanically you don't actually do that well. You don't have a good arm path. And that would be a better approach than you saying, well, maybe I need to stretch to gain that range. No, you just don't actually put your arm through those movements when you're throwing, and you can do drills to help you do that. Good question. If you have a question, go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, at Top Velocity, hashtag pitching tips, hashtag baseball tips. Ask your question, we answer on the show. We're both going to be at the ABCA convention in Nashville, January 7th through 10th. Also check out topvelocity.net and all the 3X, 2X programs. And put your question out there, and we'll answer it on the next show.